Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk, episode 272. We've got Cameron Bishop from Cutting Edge Hot Rods, and he has one of the most ripping, ready-to-run C10s out there, SEMA 2022, and it's a runner, it's a racer. Here we go. Enjoy the show.
So, it was the factory seat with big sheet metal things bolted to it that were padded. So that was oh, that'd be fun to kind of do if I did a sports seat and made it look like it was a race seat, really went down that road. And as I got more involved in what I was doing, it was I just can't, so I really struggled with, I have this 70s exterior look, but how do I make the inside to where it's not just a pain in the dick to be in? That was a struggle. That was probably, yeah, it was tough to make that balance happen.
Damn, son.
Let me tell you what Melba's Post is packing right here, all right? We've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some bucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man is a television repairman. Got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth clapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
Here we go. Let's get this party started right. 272. Cameron Bishop, Cutting Edge Hot Rods. He's right here in Phoenix. Had a great time getting to know Cameron, sitting down, talking trucks. And dude grew up building rad shit, really. So it's cool. The focus is on his little race truck, but he's been building rad stuff for a long time. So the lineage is deep. A few announcements before we jump into this episode. We've got a few different things going on. Our title sponsor, which is UP Car Parts, they're going to have a 20% sale at the Get Down. If you're there and you can make it, you're going to get 20% off at their booth. Okay, upcarparts.com. If you can't make it, that Thursday, which is the 9th, they're going to start their sale for LED lighting, and it's going to be code DINO20, DINO20. Our title sponsor, UP Car Parts, 11/9. If you're not able to make it to the Get Down, you're going to get 20% off LED lighting. If you're at the Get Down, stop by their booth, 20% off. And they're doing the collab shirts as well. So stop by, grab your collab shirt, buy some parts, 20% off, UP Car Parts. What else do I have here? Next Tuesday, October 24th, probably around 6 p.m. We'll do a post, but I'm going to head out to Cardinal Stadium where the Get Down will be. Dino and myself are going to sit down and we're going to go live. So we did that last year. I've got a little bit better setup. Make sure you guys can hear us. Q&A with the Big Cat, Dino's Get Down, 13th annual, little live action. Okay, Q&A, so save up those questions. And next Tuesday, 10/24, 6 p.m. AZ time is probably about where we'll be at. I'll post something up, okay? We've got some Get Down stuff to talk about. Pre-show, pre-party. You've got two pre-parties. You've got the West Side one, which is over at Tray 5 and Eye Candy. They've always done a great job with that one. Hell, I think this is probably about their 7th year doing their pre-show party, and that's at Tray 5 Eye Candy. So both they're next door to one another, and that's always a good time. They've got food, they've got music, they have a lot going on there. And then I believe this is the second one because I went to the first one last year. On the east side is the Kickback, and that's at the Chupacabra Tap Room in Mesa, so downtown Mesa, and that will probably start about the same time, I think at 6 o'clock. So east side, the Kickback, west side, the pre-party over at Trey Foose, and then Eye Candy as well. I'll be up at SEMA the week prior to the Get Down, and we'll be doing some content. We'll be meeting with folks. We'll be going live, so tune in for that as well. Some different things we'll have moving and shaking. Episode 271, if you haven't had a chance, with Wayne Dick from Dick Industries. He's got that 62 ramp truck, and then he's building a sweet little 73, 74. It was a long bed he cut down. It came from Billings, Montana, and he's doing a great job. You can check out a lot of that on his social as well. I've got to wrap this one up, and then I won't have anything until SEMA and then the get down, because I've got a little project that I need to get going and get my ass out into the shop and start breaking down some stuff. So hopefully I can get this truck done before the get down and at least drive it out there, maybe just to the kickback. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll be posting up on C10 Talk and making sure that we keep you guys abreast to what I'm building here. It's going up instead of down. I've teamed up with US Wheel. I've got some LMC parts going so far. Obviously, some precision replacement parts. I've got some off-road design, a lot of off-road design. I wouldn't say some. Definitely a lot of off-road design on this one. So we're going up instead of down. Should be a fun one. Think 6-inch lift, 37s, 1976 K25, or 2500, I guess, because it's a GMC. All right, that's it. Let's get into 272 with Cameron Bishop, Cutting Edge Hot Rods. As always, thanks for the support. Thanks for tuning in. You know how to get a hold of me, Ronnie at trucktalkmedia.com, Ronnie at trucktalkmedia.com. Questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Otherwise, we'll be back with some SEMA content in a few weeks. Until then, late. All right. What up, C10 Nation, coming back hot with the cutting edge, if you will, on this one. Cover of Street Trucks May of 23. I've got Cameron Bishop. Cameron, I tell you what, man, what a rad truck. You're out of Phoenix and Cutting Edge Hot Rods. I love this kind of pod because Cameron's like probably less than a half hour from me. I don't know Cameron. And the first time I ever saw this truck was, I remember coming around the corner at the Beltec SEMA booth last year, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I'm a purist when it comes to C10, so it's definitely not my style. But, and I'm sure, I hope we kind of get into that because I'm sure you get a lot of flack. But I was really in like massive respect for all the work. And I'm sitting there looking at this thing and I'm like, wow. And with the autocross and the C10 racing, and you know, that goes from all the eras of trucks. Obviously, I think I see a little bit more second gen and third gen square bodies than I do 60 to 66, even though I do see them. We knew we had to get you on. So with that, thanks for taking time to be on the pod. Thanks for taking time to be on C10 Talk. And tell us, who's Cameron, dude?
So I'm Cameron. I own and operate Cutting Edge Hot Rods. I'm based out of like Desert Hills area, North Phoenix. I've been doing this for metal fabrications, my background. I started welding school. I went in high school, went to EVIT, which is kind of down the road from on your side of town. Yeah. And just I've been metal fab since then. So I have a lot of background in like off-road racing and all my tube work and all stuff from off-road racing. And I built my first hot rod in 2013, and then that kind of snowballed and just started word of mouth and started building cars and doing work, and then it just turned into this. But I'm married. I got a beautiful wife, and we have a 5-year-old son, Carson. And pretty much everything I do is, you know, for him. try to make good stuff and obviously treat my customers and stuff right, but you know, those two people are my world. So, you know, everything I build, that's for us personally is to try to do stuff as a family. So, and that was largely kind of the inspiration, or not really the inspiration, but what started the project for the C10.
Cool. What does Carson think of the C10?
It's his truck. He loves it. It's his favorite thing. I picked him up from school in it, and you know, I got we had a razor, and I have a drum seat that drops into his seat, and all the 5-point stuff all goes through it, so he fits in it perfect, and it's comfortable, and it's one of his favorite things to go rip around in. So
I mean, let's break this down. Think about it. He's a kid. He's 5. First of all, he
Yeah.
thinks dad walks on water, and then dad just, I mean, you're hedging your bets here. Mom doesn't have a chance right now. I mean, it's
Right.
like, hey, dad picks me up
Yeah,
in
we're
the
pro dad.
C10.
We're pro dad right now.
Yeah, they're big time pro dad with that. But okay,
Yeah.
let's rewind a little bit. EVIT. So for the audience, that's our Votech High School. We're
Yeah, East Valley
lucky
Institute Technology.
Yep. Yeah. I've been around
Yep.
even all the way back to when I was in high school. My wife went there. I didn't go there. For the audience. It's like a hub in the Phoenix Valley where kids from all over. There's one called West Tech up on the northwest side, and then EVIT in the central. But so you go to welding. My son actually did that too. 2 years of welding at EVIT, and what a great program. At that point, were you into hot rodding and building from your dad? And so then you said, hey, I'm going to weld. And then I know someday I want to have my own hot rod shop, or you're just like, dude, I just want to just learn how to weld. And I get out of school for doing it.
So I grew up with like Motorcycle Mania, Jesse James, start kicking off kind of reality TV in that way, and watching Monster Garage and Junkyard Wars was one of my favorite shows. And what I loved about those shows in general was like taking something that wasn't and making it something. So as I grew up, we rode dirt bikes, and we went to the dunes and had sand cars and kind of did all of the, typical Arizona like things, I guess, if you're into motorsports in Arizona, off-road motorsports. So I knew I needed to learn how to weld because I wanted to fabricate. I wanted to build something, whether it was race cars or, general fab. Like I knew I wanted to create stuff. And so when EVIT, I struggled in school, like traditional school, just because my mind was wanting to do other things. And so it was really hard for me to kind of apply myself. And when EVIT became an option, I went to Saguaro High School. I'm from Old Town Scottsdale, born and raised here. And so we had to drive. I left third period and drove to EVIT. And that really kind of gave me I found something that I really enjoyed. And my senior year of high school, my best friend's dad was starting a fab shop, and he was actually out of his property. He was out in Queen Creek. So I started working for him, and him and I turned that business from his garage. We moved down to 40th and Broadway, or 40th and Southern, sorry. And we specialized in spray roofing for all things Pro Component Systems. And I managed all the fab side of those projects. So like the box trucks and all the racks and, whatever. And then we did general fab. So I've done dump trucks. I've done XY axis, fill machines, like just all kinds of whatever weird stuff came through the door. And that really helped me because I'm not formally trained in like engineering and stuff like that. You figure out a lot of stuff on site. And when you're trying to work through problems and stuff like that. And me and his name's Dan, and him and I were like best friends. And, he taught me so much of what I know now and kind of the thought process through, working through the problem, figure out the problem, figure out the solution, and kind of work through the pieces. And I always like that was really what I really loved to do, was kind of work through that problem and find the cool solution for it. When the housing market crashed in 08, the company stopped putting roofs on houses. So we lost our bread and butter. And we ended up having to close the business down. I started working for a car dealership just because they were the only people hiring, and I could turn wrenches, in 2013 or so, I left there and decided to build, I was building my hot rod. My side work was getting bigger. I started fabricating again, kind of getting back into some of that stuff. And I realized I hated dealerships and I hated management. I just hated being the young guy and coming from a situation where like it was me and the owner and we had a team of guys, and, I had like some respect. I had a little bit of an ego, and it was a bit of a struggle for me. So my wife had graduated nursing school, so we didn't need so much of my income to be so, like consistent. And I could afford to kind of make that change. So I started doing that, started doing a lot of side work, and finished up my hot rod, did autocross with it, had some fun with it, and just kind of snowballed from there. So
Well, it's cool that you got a lot of that, whether it's through Dan and just that OJT, that on the job training
Hmm.
and that process. And so many kids, today it's like, dude, I hate traditional school. And you got to bust out at lunch. You got to, on your
Hmm.
way down from Saguaro down to, straight shot down Alma
Yeah, it
School or
was
something there.
101 to 202 and
Yeah.
got off at Dobson there.
You probably
And then
had
we
lunch
jumped over
every day
Maine.
right there, and
Yep.
and then you get to go, do work with your hands. And so many of not only society but obviously our audience as
Hmm.
well is like, I'm feeling your pain. So you finally figured it out. You found where you fit. And would you say that when you built your hot rod, that just naturally turned into you saying, okay, not only do I have the confidence to do this, but it became a rolling billboard?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I didn't actively seek out fab work. I wasn't, I would do stuff for, we had a big group of guys that ran like sand cars. Like we had a big, campsite group. And so I did a lot of fab work for all those guys because they all, you tear stuff up all the time. So most of my side work was like people I knew was fixing his rail. He wanted to do this or do that or whatever. But once I did the hot rod and started driving it around, like took it to pavilions and whatever, that's when I started getting more phone calls from general public, I would say. And that slowly kind of the ball kept rolling. But yeah, that to your question, that hot rod was really kind of the okay, I like this. This is fun. This is more fun in a lot of ways than the off-road stuff was because I don't have to trailer it there and then I break it as soon as it comes off the trailer. Like I can enjoy this, tear around, bang the gears, and have some fun. And then, I did the Good Guys Autocross the first time with that car, and that was a lot of fun. It's not road racing and banging doors and everything that kind of really gets your adrenaline going, but it is a lot of fun and it's enjoyable and there's some skill set to it. And so I've kind of found a new spot that I didn't have to spend so much money, and the off-road stuff was it's just so expensive. And it was coming to a time where it was just it had gotten long in the tooth you know
Yeah, I wondered if you had a struggle with that. Can you hear me? I feel like I almost
yeah, it's
lost my
turned down a
signal.
little bit, but it should be okay.
Yeah, I didn't even hit anything there. So I wondered if you struggle with that decision to make that decision to, when you're so ingrained with all the fellas, and you're like, hey, should I get into side by side? Should I get into building
Hmm.
rails? Because that is I grew up going to the dunes, but that was before it got to be so raily, and
Hmm.
we're
Yeah.
talking 250Rs, Banshees, stuff
Yep.
like that. But it is I wondered if you were like, did you ever get to a crossroads where you're like, hey, I need to either go full sand car
So
style or I need to go hot rod style?
what I mean, the when the housing market crashed, we had that, our problems we had here and I mean nationwide. A lot of the guys that were with us, like they're all business owners, they're all independently wealthy. They weren't, they didn't have millions of dollars, but they had enough money to spend 100 grand on a sandrail. Um, and as all that stuff started settling in and everyone's losing money and tightening up, like people just stopped going. So our whole dune group, they started selling their cars off because they started breaking stuff. And, you can only break a $25,000 tranny so many times before you just don't want to go there anymore. And my off-road race car, it wasn't as expensive, but it was still expensive. And I had run 3 seasons on it and it was due for a refresh. And it was just kind of one of those situations where, you know, the reality of the situation was I couldn't keep going down the road I was on. So I was already kind of checked out of what we were doing and we weren't going to the dunes as much. And, my wife and I bought our first house. And so like the world was kind of changing. We went from, I had a condo in Scottsdale and we bought a house up here. Um, and it just was kind of that moment where I couldn't do it anymore. And the group kind of changed, like the dynamic changed, the glory days kind of were over. So we talked about maybe getting a Harley. Like we were trying to find something to kind of fill that void. And I had a friend of mine pass away on a motorcycle right around the same time. And it was like, yeah, I can't, I don't want to do it on that road. And that's
Yeah.
when I decided to make a hot rod. It was like, let's try this. So,
Cool. Yeah, it all worked out, right?
yeah, it was kind of funny how it worked out that way, but it turned out to be beneficial, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, the dune cycle, not to bore the audience too much, but same, my wife and I dooning, toy hauler, the weekend warrior, the whole deal, and you spend all your money and then you're going down to the dunes, you're spending more money. And it's funny to look back, same thing, that '08 cycle hits. And you've got guys that families, I should say, and I could look back at our dune circle, we'd go to Glamis and it was like, okay, that guy cheated on that, now they're getting divorced.
Right.
They lost their house because they mortgaged their toy hauler, their sandrail, and
Like
everything was
everybody
more.
did, yeah.
And it was so funny, like, and not funny, right? But to hear, like, we could probably sit down over a Sobe bottle or a Sobe bomb, if you will, for the audience.
And have the same story with different
Oh,
names.
yeah, same thing. And just plug in these people. And for the audience, if you've never heard, which a lot of people haven't, what a Sobe bomb is,
Terrifying.
I highly recommend you YouTube it. One of the highlights of my life is just making those things. We used to take the old glass Sobe bottles, and Sobe was
They
a
even make
drink.
Sobe anymore?
I think they probably do, but they definitely changed the bottles because of
Yeah.
somebody
of
probably
us.
got sued. But yeah, we even used to go with a Lone Star Fab guy, and he made a little like shrapnel holder, and we'd put it in the fire. And so here's the deal. Just look it up. If you really haven't heard of it, look up Sobe bomb, and you'll see people at the dunes, and the videos will never do the justice of what it feels like.
No.
But having 5 to 6 toy haulers in a circle at night around a campfire, and then you'll be in your trailer and somebody will light off a Sobe bomb, and it will suck the air approximately 30 yards circumference, and you'll be in your camper and the whole camper will sway because of so much just the amount of oxygen that's just being sucked up into this ball of fire. So yeah, pretty crazy. But the dunes were pretty amazing back then, going
Yeah,
Comp
that was
Hill.
like the glory days.
Yeah, it was a good time growing up, going out there. We had a good time. My wife, I remember going New Year's one time, and there was some dude streaking, and then there was people that took porta potties up to I guess it would be Comp, and they were like pushing them down, and freaking porta potties were rolling, and obviously all the magnesium blocks that people would light on fire, and yeah, it just got to be crazy for sure. But yeah, good times. Okay, so you had a T in the road, a Y in the road. You said, hey, we're not going to do motorcycles, we're going to do hot rods. You build your first hot rod. At what point do you say, hey, I'm going to build this just absolutely radical C10?
So I've been created the LLC, kind of went legit, for lack of better, in the beginning of 2018. And I did a lot of cars and stuff for clients and stuff like that. And I did a Homa Moody Mustang that had a really cool racing history.
Was that the red one?
Yeah, the red one that's on my Instagram there.
Yeah.
And that car was like a Peruvian built car, and it had this really just fun story. And going through, that car was built by Homa Moody in 71. So it was right there with, that race car technology, I enjoyed the hell out of restoring it, how to learn its history, kind of seeing how these big shops did stuff, because Homa Moody was Ford factory race cars. If there was a factory Ford race car, it was built by Homa Moody. And that really kind of inspired me to build something. I went to the one and only Pro Touring Truck Shootout that was out here. That same year, I think that was 18.
Yeah, that would have been April of 20, I think.
Was it 20?
I based it off of COVID, so I want to say it was either 20 or 21. Yeah, because I went to
I go to that and I'm like, oh, like these trucks are wheeling, and there wasn't a ton of trucks there. There was trucks there. I'm not saying there wasn't a ton. There wasn't a ton of like race trucks, like legit, bona fide. I think Goldie was there.
Yeah, Goldie was there. Yeah, Provost had the VIP thing there. Bowman had
there was a couple. There was and they so there was enough for me to go, huh.
Well, that one C10, didn't he catch fire there? That's
the orange one.
Yeah. Oh, he's a good dude.
So, I really enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed the idea of it. I had a lot of fun with the hot rod, doing autocross, stuff like that. I was like, well, this might be fun. Like I could build a truck. I had a 72 Blazer in high school. I had an 82 Blazer. I've had 72s along the way. I've kind of always had one of these trucks in my life within, a couple of years in spans. I never went without them for too long. Um, and kind of had this idea of what I wanted to do. My first hot rod I did with C5 Corvette parts, and it's just what I could afford, and it was cheap and easy and whatever. So I started developing this idea. I did that Home and Moody car, and kind of, that reinvigorated some of my love for the 70s race cars and that era of racing, when it was way more dangerous than it is today. Not that it's not dangerous, but like at that time, those guys were crazy. Um, it just kind of snowballed from there. I wanted something different, obviously. Um, there's a lot of C10s, there's a lot of race trucks, a lot of flared fenders, like that. A lot of that stuff exists, and I wasn't trying to make something different just for the sake of doing it. This wasn't a TV show, but I just wanted something that was inherently mine. I had a brief picture of this idea and how it would work and how it would look. And I found this truck local to me. It was a clean cab, clean truck, clean title deal. And I picked it up. I bought a Corvette from a buddy of mine that bought it off of Copart.
What year was the Corvette? What gen?
It was a 2012 Grand Sport with like 30
C7.
What's that? Yeah, C6.
Six. Okay.
So, and it was a coupe 6-speed. The nice thing about coupe 6-speeds, they are Z06s. They're built in Bowling Green. And then they just have an LS3 instead of an LS7. So you don't deal with some of the LS7 heads sometimes have some issues, and the later ones are pretty much worked out. But regardless, it had an LS3, it had dry sump, had all the things I kind of wanted to do. So I started building a truck just to have a fun car for me to drive. My son was becoming of age to where he wanted to come out in the shop and bang hammers on tables, and was old enough that I could have it. He would understand it to some degree, and I wanted to try to inspire him in a way that like the Monster Garage and Junkyard Wars and those TV shows kind of inspired me. Like, hey, look, here's a junky truck was sitting in someone's yard, and here's a Corvette that the back got railed by a freight train or whatever. We're gonna make something out of this, and with the intention of always was going to be to race it and do autocross, and obviously for my own personal benefit. But it was kind of this multi-dimensional idea of mine where I could inspire him, build a truck for the shop, have something to do afterwards to go to the racetrack, and get him out of like the tablet setting. I didn't grow up that way, and not that there's anything wrong if people give their kids tablets. Like that's on you. You do you. But I wanted him to have like real life memories that are him doing stuff. He's hitting stuff with hammers. We're making loud noises and tire smoke, and he's not just watching a tablet of people doing stuff.
Hey guys, stoked to have Max Custom Tie Downs as our tie down solution. You think about it. You're always hauling stuff, you're moving stuff, you want the best. Not only is Max the best, they're made in the US of A. So if you're like me and you want the best, think Max. That's maxcustomtiedowns.com.
Need C10 parts? Well, here at Pro, we actually have trucks. We build them, we drive them, and we deal with them every day. It's just part of who we are. We carry the best products for your truck project from the major name brands such as QA1, React, Painless, Dakota, Beltec, Borgeson, Bear, and even more. Give us a call or check us out on the web.
You've heard me talk about my gauges, Dakota Digital. I love them. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. You can change the lighting colors, customize the reading in the message centers, and do it all from the mobile app. That's right, the HDX and RTX series have Bluetooth technology. It's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com.
I didn't grow up that way, and not that there's anything wrong if people give their kids tablets. Like that's on you. You do you. But I wanted him to have like real life memories that are him doing stuff. He's hitting stuff with hammers. We're making loud noises and tire smoke, and he's not just watching a tablet of people doing stuff.
Well, kudos to you, because that is, I mean, without a doubt, that's the struggle right now for parents is getting that tablet. And that's the way the world is, right? And so I know I saw a post, I think it was yesterday, And of course, I didn't even answer it because I was like, this isn't really warrant an answer, but it was like, did you grow up? Are you happy that you grew up the way you did, playing and biking and riding and so on without a phone, really? And you think about it and you're like, yes, that's the absolute freedom. And now these, it puts latchkey kids to, we're stifling their creativity. And that's one thing that I think you, with your truck, do you have a name for this or you just call it C10?
I started calling it the Special Production C10.
Okay.
It's,
so you could almost call it spec SPC, Special Production C10.
Group 5, which is largely kind of what I styled it after. Group 5 race cars were factory touring cars. And so like BMW or Porsche, whoever would send a car, and they had a spec cage. You had to have like whatever engine came in it. It was, largely for manufacturers to have a race car that mimicked the road car. As that went on, Porsche developed the 917 specifically for that class. They kind of found all the loopholes. They built 250 of them for road use and were able to get that car in. And the last iteration of that was Group 5 Special Production. And the Special Production class, they allowed any previously homologated chassis to be used. And you had no engine limitation, no bodywork limitation, no tire limitation, no limitations of any kind. So that's when like you got the 935Ks, you got a lot of the Zach Speed Capris, and they were 1,000 horsepower twin turbo, crazy boxy wide bodies, and a lot of like that 70s road race car that people envision and see pictures of. That was that Special Production class. So that's why I called the truck the Special Production C10, because that was largely the class I was trying to mimic, with the idea of like, if they had a truck class, if at some weird way there was a truck racing class, how would that look? How would that eventually have turned into? And that was kind of what this was.
Yeah. So. It's so unique, and I love the creativity, and I love that you just said, fuck it, I'm going to build it this way. I got to think you struggled with that. Where do I start? Where do I stop? I do see that you have renderings. And did you really have to, how much drawing did you just sit there and say, okay, and then explain to us where like, okay, I'm stopping. I can, like, because you've modified so much, but you did keep some. So it's such a, no, that's all right. You got the dog. Somebody's at the door. What's the dog's name?
Stella. Hey, I know. It's okay. Come here. I know.
It's the UPS guy. Stella's pissed because I said the truck only has some and only left some of it.
Yeah. Stella, I know. Hey, stop. Stop it. I know. She's a little crazy. There's a lot of construction happening outside. Okay.
So just going back here, I'm gonna even rewind a little bit more. Is buying a Corvette the way to go? Because I feel like if you know that you're gonna do that and you can buy that Corvette, you're saving so much. You're saving a lot of hassle. You're saving engineering. You're saving. You tell us.
If I had to do it again, I wouldn't have bought a Corvette.
Wow. Okay.
I initially, when I did the 32 Chevy, my first hot rod,
and that was janky or something like that. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, I had some dumb name for it. I was young.
Yeah, that's all right. So for the audience, it's kind of like if I'm thinking of the right one, it's like a little bit of the Monster Mobile. It's definitely got its own class of
chopped and channeled. I chopped it 7, channeled it 6, or vice versa, whatever it was. And the wheels stuck way out because it was like 335s in the back and 385s in the front. It was, but stock Corvette wheelbase, and it, the using a 2-door sedan body allowed me to make that wheelbase work and the seating position work. So you basically sat in the same spot in that car as you would a Corvette. So when I initially wanted to do the C10, my original plan, my grand plan, if I had one, for the build side of it was if I could develop a chassis for a C10 where you could buy a wrecked Corvette, buy my chassis, put them together, and put your C10 on it. There you go, and maybe have some sort of a chassis program that wasn't quite as expensive as a Roadster Shop or I'm drawing Art Morrison or any of those guys.
No limit.
It wasn't a $30,000 prospect, and you could buy a donor car and a chassis and put it together and have a truck that ripped pretty good and drove nice. And you could still do that. Like that certainly isn't out of the question. But the issue you run into, or I ran into, with using the Corvette geometry and using all their stuff is our wheelbase changed quite a bit going from a C6 to a C10. And I didn't want to have a short bob truck. Like there's the guys that do the like a NASCAR body swap stuff. Like the proportions end up kind of looking funny because they're much shorter. So I ended up having to go through and redo all the geometry and change my anti-squat, my anti-dive, and I moved my roll centers around. So to answer your point, if I had to do it again, I would have just bought some Corvette parts. I wouldn't have bought the whole car because I just didn't, in the grand scheme of what I used, I didn't really use that much. I didn't use the chassis. I didn't use hardly anything of the Corvette minus the arms and the knuckles and the torque tube. The transmission obviously, but so it was, I mean, I don't know, I guess the stuff was still pretty cheap. I paid 10 grand for the Corvette and I sold the body for 5. So, I had an LS and tranny and a bunch of parts for 5 grand. So it's probably worth doing it. I don't know. I probably could argue both ways.
Well, I can see what you're saying too, is when you started the journey, you probably thought that, hey, it wasn't going to be as much, but now that you know what you know, you're like, right. Hey, I might still buy the Corvette because I got everything I got for 5 grand after I sold everything. Right. But the amount of work and engineering and, you're like, it's almost better to start with that chassis built like this and then take the Corvette parts and then sell the rest off. It
didn't take long for me to decide that using it how I did on the 32 was not going to work out. But I had to buy everything first to really start getting after it. So I bought the Corvette, I bought all the stuff and took it all apart, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't going to work. So at that point, I started modeling stuff in SolidWorks to develop the chassis itself. And I did measure the Corvette stuff and see where their geometry kind of lined up and what values they used, to just as a reference point to kind of know where they were and how they did it and why maybe the car handles like it does in some ways. And then I just adapted it to the truck and kind of our new weight, because we're a touch heavier than the Corvette was. Our center of gravity is a touch higher because we're a C10. And I just kind of went down that road, and it didn't take long for me to just decide to make it all. And by the end of it, I kind of looked at what I used, actually real life, what I used from the Corvette, and it was like, yeah, I probably could have done without. But
so what's the wheelbase of a Corvette? Because I'm going through in my head.
So a C6 is 106 inches.
Okay, because a Blazer's 105 and a Blazer's 113, I think, and then a
Blazer's 105,
104, 105,
113.
Yep, and then a long bed is 124. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, 124.
A lot of glove boxes. Just looking there. So yeah. Yep. So obviously a Blazer and a Corvette are pretty much.
Yeah, there actually is. I forgot whose truck it is. He ran Good Guys for a while with it, but he basically body swapped a Blazer and gutted a Corvette chassis and trimmed out all the birdcage off it, and then just placed the Blazer body over it. So he still has a Corvette floor, and it's kind of a little weird on the inside, and that was basically a body swap at that point.
Yeah, I could see more people, anytime you have that matched up. So, but now and
right.
And we do see some people who will do that. I'm trying to think. The one guy I did interview him, Pro 10, probably one of the most controversial interviews I've ever had. I go into interviewing this guy, and it's been years ago, but God, he just pisses everybody off. But he used more of a NASCAR dirt track or something, but he's got a really bobbed C10 where that bed is not even close to.
Yeah, he's made comments too.
Oh yeah, he is just I hate to say it, but yeah, he is just he's a keyboard warrior. He makes, even me being naive and thinking, oh yeah, I'll interview this guy. And I think he had reached out to me a few times, but man, did I don't think I catch flack. It would be more of like, dude, this guy's a jackass. Why'd you interview him? I'm like, dude, I didn't know he was a jackass in your little group. I'm sorry, but now I know. So there you go. Okay, so you might not do it the same way. What else would you say would be a struggle with the spec C10?
So I struggle. Well, my first plan, what was primary concern for me was I wanted to run a 12-inch wheel all around. I wanted a 325 all around. I wanted to try to pull the motor back as far as I could. Like I had these are the things that I want. And once I kind of determined what that would look like on the body side, like what kind of clearance I would need, I had the idea of the bodywork that it has. Uh, and probably the biggest struggle was making that work and work in a way that I was happy with it, like in all the angles. And there's a couple angles where I'm kind of like, ooh, I wish maybe I would have done something different there. But like generally speaking, I'm happy with it. And I still like I love C10s and I've done a ton of C10s. I have customers with C10s. Like I'm a C10 guy, right? So it was a struggle for me to cut the bedside like I did and to like do it like I did. It was a lot and I love it. And once it's all done, I stood back and looked at it. I was like, all right. But there was a lot of moments when I was doing it where it's just I was nervous. I guess I'll say that. It was like I got to go down this road so I can see it, and if I don't like it, I'll throw it away. I guess. But like the bedsides were, I had probably 3 weeks in them of between fitting them, welding them, metal finishing, doing all the tin work on them, and planishing hammer and English wheel and just all the nonsense of it. So, it was a lot of time to spend on something to be like, yeah, okay, I think I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Well, I
So
guess
there was a moment where I was like, do I throw this away? Like, what do I do? You know?
I guess the good thing about a C10 bed is you can get them,
Yeah.
not like the old days where you could, you would chase down a bedside or a short bed or
Right.
something.
And I didn't
Now,
no original parts were harmed in the making of that thing.
well, I don't know the cab. You started with the
Yeah, that's
cab, but
fair.
yeah,
But I mean, the cab was like your typical C10. The outer 4 inches of floor were gone. The cab corners were gone. The rockers were gone. It had somebody ran into the door and the whole door was caked in body filler. Like it wasn't some cherry C10 that, like it had sat on Facebook Marketplace for a while. It wasn't like I swooped in and
hey,
snagged this
it
cherry.
doesn't matter if it was a 10 out of 10. It's yours, and you get to do whatever you want
Exactly.
with it. And at this
Exactly.
point, we're at a funny time in our C10 world because one of the sayings we have in the fire department is there's two things firefighters hate: change and the way things are. Well, the funny thing about the where we're at in the fire in the C10 world is you'll get the purist, oh my god, you harmed this C10. Well, then
Right.
you'll
How dare
also
you?
get somebody that says, I've seen every style of C10 ever. Well, guess what happens? You have to change some shit up if you're going to try to see
Hmm.
something cool and something out of the ordinary, and you provided that. So
Yeah.
we wouldn't know if people weren't doing what they're doing. We
Right.
just
And
wouldn't know.
you gotta push edges, like, and I guess that's when I started cutting it, and I didn't initially have a rendering. It was all in my head. I kind of sketched some stuff on paper, just generally trying to get some of the notes out of my head and organize it. Um, and it wasn't until the Beltec and KW showed some interest in jumping on board that I had a rendering made. And that the rendering was really helpful to kind of see it in 3D in a way that wasn't in my brain. Um, and kind of, I mean, it holds pretty true to the render. The rendering and the truck are pretty much the same. Um,
Totally.
and I think that's pretty rare. Most of the renderings I see that end up turning into trucks, it's like, oh, okay, well that's like maybe a cartoonish picture of that truck, but um, it was helpful. And yeah, I mean the cutting up the truck was tough. I just didn't want to have another. I couldn't have another white C10. I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull up somewhere and be like, oh, is that truck? Oh, no, that's Cam's truck. That one's pearl white or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know what's funny when you say the white truck too is you had it posted where you had done the metal fab on the front and the rear. You had different wheels, kind of a
yeah, I
teaser,
had this like C6
and
wheels.
and
Yeah.
it was all kind of patinaed out and calicoed and different colors and just dude, I love that. I was like,
Oh yeah.
oh, look at that. Like just because I love patina trucks that are still alive and they're out there running.
Yeah.
Did you struggle with okay, so you had it there, you get your rendering done. Did you know like it's going to be white? Oh, did you want to give some
So
stripes, some colors,
it was
because
always going
people
to be,
think go ahead, yeah.
it was always going to be white. Well, I take that back. I kind of played with the idea of maybe doing that chalk, Porsche's chalk and clay. They have those two kind of taupe colors, for lack of
Yeah.
better. Uh, and I hadn't really seen a lot of those colors being used at the time when I was kind of bouncing this in my head. And then that you start seeing them everywhere, and everyone's painting their stuff that color. And the cement gray came through, and it just
Well, and that's it.
everything was
I
cement
feel
gray.
like Toyota, right? So Toyota,
Yeah,
you've got your tans, you got your that blue, and we've got a little bit of that those Easter colors, and now they're so
yeah.
popular.
So I played with the idea originally. Like I really like Highlanders. I'm building a Blazer right now. It's a Highlander, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun to do like a plaid fucking race seat and like really kind of tie into a lot of the C10 stuff. But then I thought it would just be too trendy, and I was trying to check too many boxes, and it turned into something where it was like, this would be a clown car when it's done. So I kind of switched to a white truck. I really like Martini Rossi liveries, the blue and it's like a light blue, dark blue, red
Yep.
stripes. So the first renderings, it had those stripes, and they will be on it with like vinyl, just because I like it and it's vinyl. I can change it, do whatever. Like,
Great thing
whatever.
about vinyl, you can change it every month.
Exactly. So that'll be kind of if there was an end goal for what it would look like, it would be with those stripes on it. And if I don't like it, let's peel them off, whatever. But at this point, it's white. It's going to stay white. It's easy to clean. It's simple.
So once you go down full race mode, okay, so
Mhm.
you're like, hey, I'm motivated. I got this Corvette. I want to go off of this Group 5 baseline, and I'm going full vet. And then now you're like, okay, now I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to modify the hood. I'm going to modify these front fenders. I'm going to completely, I don't even know what you call it. I mean, in the four-wheel world, we would call it bobbing the rear end. You
Right.
completely cut off that rear end. Was that just sitting down sketching and you're having a bourbon and you're like, okay, let's see how this looks, and it just flowed and you're like, hold my beer, here we go, let's start cutting this shit up and see how it looks?
Classic Performance Products, CPP back. Joe, let's talk X10 spindles. Go.
One of our most popular parts through the years has been our 2.5-inch drop modular spindles. Really popular part. Well, we've kind of taken that to the next step. We've emulated late model Corvette, Silverado, Chevy technology into our new X10 drop spindles. They use a steel hub, sealed bearing hub, really strong piece. It's oversized bearings, definitely great for a guy using big brakes, big wheels, which I'm sure all your guys are.
You need a new spindle anyways. You're going to lower your truck. You're running a bigger wheel, a bigger brake. CPP's got it for you with their new X10 spindle. Joe, as always, thank you. CPP, classicperform.com. It's classicperform.com.
Sniper 2. Are you ready to switch out that old carb for a modern EFI system? Well, Holley has a solution for you. The all-new Sniper 2. This new system was redesigned from the ground up. Available in tumbled polished or black powder coat, and there's 3 available tuning interfaces. A classic 3.5 handheld, a 5-inch mountable, which includes a GPS speedo or a Bluetooth module so you can use your smartphone. Another big bonus is the Sniper 2 has a built-in transmission control module. So if you're looking to upgrade to a 4-speed overdrive, 4L60, 4L80, you now can with ease. Holley.com to get started today, Holley.com. Hey guys, let's face it, your truck suspension is old, and your ride can be so much better. Discover QA1 and their full range of truck, suspension components, drop kits, and coilover conversion systems. QA1.net. That's QA1.net.
Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. All parts are manufactured in-house in Oklahoma City, USA. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com.
Was that just sitting down sketching and you're having a bourbon and you're like, okay, let's see how this looks, and it just flowed and you're like, hold my beer, here we go, let's start cutting this shit up and see how it looks?
So the 917 Porsche has a big cut off bobtail like that, and I really love how it looks. You see all of the tranny, you see everything back there, and it's just cool. You know, it's 70s race car when like aero was important, but wasn't like important. And I really enjoy like looking at there was a couple Porsches like it. Mazda had a couple cars that had that front fender design. And because I was running such a wide wheel, I had to do something. So I was either going to do like Big Ten's doing their NASCAR truck. I forgot what they're calling it, but they're doing that big flare truck.
Yeah,
and I could do
he
flares
calls
like,
it. Yeah, he calls it. I think it's Snot Rocket, but he keeps. It's the old green
I've seen
truck,
a
but
couple regardless, you know what I'm talking about. And his flares, and like that truck's gonna be rad. And there's a lot of flares like that, you know, going to like Camaros and stuff, like Anvil. Everyone makes big flares. So I didn't necessarily like that was kind of my backup plan. I was like, well, if this doesn't work out, if this looks like if I'm not happy, then I can just do a simple flare. I can still put my 12-inch wheel, like it'll still swing and everything will work. So when I first started, I laid the bedside on the side of the truck and just took some painter's tape and started taping off kind of body lines and trying to visualize what the proportions and the lengths of everything were going to look like. And just one day I said, hold my beer, you know, and just started chopping. And once I did that, it started to work for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I can make this. And, you know, just started getting it wider and doing all those things. And it just went from there. So
did you know the front would match the back? Did you know that you would have that flow?
Yeah, that was always my intention, because like the rendering doesn't show the body line continue or any of that stuff kind of continue down. It just shows it kind of end. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to look like I took a fender, pulled it out, cut it, and that was it. Like I wanted it to look like someone made a fender that was shaped this way. And the 69 Camaros have that, you know, that body line that tapers away. So it's still very much GM's kind of language of the time. And so that made the most sense to me on how to make this feel C10 still and still have that, you know, very much that generation C10's lip to their fender edge without making it end and making it look completed and finished, you know. So that was a struggle, when to taper them off, like how that was going to look and blend into the rest of the body and stuff.
I could see with you saying like the 69 was the inspiration for the audience. You know, 69 is very unique on that. It runs, you know, that wheel line goes and then kind of flares out.
I've had people say, oh, you just wanted to make it a 69 Camaro. And I was like, what?
Well, you're gonna,
that was the whole inspiration, Doug.
Yeah, you're gonna have people say everything. Did you think about leaving that lower on the back of the rear bedside and then go not all the way, not meaning normal, but hey, I'm going to emphasize this line, and it's probably better that you didn't, just because of people trying to say that, not that you care.
Right. And once I did it, and before the wing was mounted, you know, I had the wing off it multiple times and whatever, and I was nervous because you lose so much of the body in the back. Like proportionally, things got weird, and they are like, it's got a odd proportion to the back. I'm the first to acknowledge that. So I considered maybe doing a big diffuser in the back and then pulling the sides of the diffuser up to kind of simulate that last half of the bed, or at least complete that portion of it. So that might still happen depending on, you know, what I do with the truck or what events I seem to like doing more. So that this isn't the set in stone. I'm never changing it and hell with everybody. Like, you know, it may change. I might do something different or whatever, but I wanted it to be the rendering. I wanted to kind of complete that, you know, 917 inspiration where you see all the stuff back there. And Initially for SEMA, I was going to have a bed cover, but I just ran out of time and I just haven't had time to work on it since then. But I kind of wanted to have that. When you saw it drive by, you looked in and you could see it had a transaxle, like stuff was happening back there. Didn't have a 9 inch, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it may still change. We might still have a diffuser or something to kind of bring some mass back down to the bottom. Mostly.
Well, it's funny, even like you said, you're gonna do some more stuff. You ran out of time for SEMA. So again, just absolute normalcy. You work your ass off on your extra hours when you're not working on customer stuff. You push the deadline. I gotta imagine you get it to SEMA 2022. And now you're just like, okay, I want to just enjoy it because I don't even have time to make the bed cover or let alone worry about a new bed. I'm sure you sit there, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that'd be kind of cool, but do I have time for that right now?
Right. And like, I laugh, I tell a joke, like I'm still recovering from SEMA. And once I started the project and had the chassis largely developed and had my geometry largely developed, I called KW and talked to a guy named Chris. He runs their competition department, and they do like
so
their custom.
For the audience, Beltec.
Yeah, KW owns Beltec,
Yep.
ST suspension, BBS wheels, and something else. But initially, I called KW because I just wanted to set a KWs. And Beltec, generally speaking, Beltec does lowering kits and whatever. So I started talking to him, started sending him pictures. He passed the pictures around inter-office, and that's really what created the initial contact where they're like, hey, like what are you doing with this? What's this going to be? Do you have any pictures, renderings, or whatever? So that's when I called Rendered Rides, Chad, and he whipped up that rendering for me real quick. So I was able to kind of send that over, and that's really what started that whole partnership or sponsorship, whatever you want to call it, with the idea of maybe SEMA. And this would be like October 21. So I just kept going on with the truck, and I hadn't got the coilovers yet. I hadn't got the wheels yet. I hadn't got a bunch of stuff yet. And they reached out to me in June. I think it was June of last year. And we kind of talked about the truck, and the coilovers were going to be here from Germany. And we ended up, as part of the sponsorship and the partnership program, for their branding and their marketing, Beltec made more sense to have a Beltec name on it than KW, just because of their marketing side
and brand recognition, right?
Right. And Beltec is sport trucks, so it doesn't make sense to put KW, which is like German coilover stuff. So my coilovers are KWs, but they're all branded with Beltec.
Sure.
Long story short, it came to like 65 days before SEMA, and I talked to them again. And they said, well, we keep trying to figure out a car for our booth, and your truck's the only one that keeps coming up. It's coming up. So every email, every meeting, thanks. It's the truck that comes up. So can you make it happen? Is it done yet? And when is it going to be done? And I was like, I mean, no, it's not done yet. And it'll be done before SEMA if you need it for SEMA. Well, how much before SEMA? And I'm
did you lie?
I didn't lie.
You have the
I might have been a little more confident than I should have. So I was very, like, I sent him pictures of where it was. I kind of outlined what the future would look like and what was coming. And I had most of it all figured out. So they came back like, all right, well, why don't you talk to your team and see if everyone's on board for this.
So you had to go home and talk to your wife?
If you can make SEMA happen, let us know. Like, call us on Monday. We'll have another meeting. We'll go over it come Monday. And this was, on Friday. So like, it's just me.
Yeah.
So like me and my team meeting is me in the mirror, Yeah. So I called around to, the parts I still needed, to vendors, the stuff that I need, because we were still dealing at that time. We were on the, COVID stuff. So like getting parts was tough. People were out of stock on things. Like it was still kind of wild as far as getting parts and getting components. So I spent Friday and the weekend basically everything I need. I went through the truck, kind of made a bullet points of like, this is what it's going to look like. I talked to my wife and I said, hey, this is going to be rough. I'm going to be in the shop nonstop. I can't. And she goes, okay. She goes, well, We have a planned trip to Disneyland that you're not missing, and you're trick or treating with us on Halloween. Other than that, whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. So I talked to my father-in-law. He owns Deer Valley Auto Body. He's who painted the truck. I talked to him and said, okay, like this is what I have ready. I can drop them off on Monday. This is what's left. This is my plan for all of this. Do you want to come up this weekend, take a look at the truck, take a look at what the metal like, what my metal, what I've gotten the metal to, so you have an idea of what the bodywork side of this is going to look like? And are you interested? And he goes, well, I can't say no. I'm like, okay, well, you should probably come up and see it then. Like, we got to have a real life meeting. So kind of put my ducks in a row come Monday and agreed to it. So I was 62 days from me saying, yeah, I'll have it there to SEMA. And I put everything on hold. So like, there was no customer work happening. It was 100% that truck, boom, 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 boom. And it was running and driving Sunday morning. I drove it into the trailer. That was the first time it ran and moved on its own, was to pull out of my shop and into the trailer. And it basically was like 60-day money fire, So back to the statement, like I find myself where I'm like, God, like I'm still working on this stuff. I'm behind on this or whatever. Like that 60 days of being behind, of just working on that, like has had a cascading ripple effect through the shop as far as other stuff goes. But I'm working through it to keep chewing,
Yeah.
If they asked me to do it again, I would probably still say yeah.
I was going to ask you that.
But I maybe think about it another day.
Yeah. Would you, if you could do it again, would you, how about this? Instead of doing it again, and obviously it's really cool that, with Carson being young, and I think that you made the right decision. You didn't miss Halloween. Obviously, somehow you made it to Disneyland as well. And then having your father-in-law as your ace in your hole is always, that's always a cool thing. And probably almost even, builds a relationship even stronger that, with that situation. Was it worth it? Not would you do it again? Was it worth it? And yeah,
it was. Was it worth it from a business perspective? Probably not. That cost a ton of money, and that I didn't see that back. Like there's no ROI on that one. But what it did was it forced me to get it done and not just put it in the corner and keep mulling over different things and redo this and redo, like it was really the driving force to get that truck done and not let it be the corner project that I pick away at and I get so wrapped up in the details that it never gets done, because that's kind of that's what happens to everybody's trucks or everybody's projects, especially when it's your own. So it has been helpful for a relationship side, like on the business side. If I call any of these companies that I've worked with, like it's, hey Cam, how you doing? Previously, not that they had bad customer service, but I was just a guy calling. So from that aspect of it, it's been nice. It's had a positive, obviously all the marketing side of it's been fun. It's been fun to see people acknowledge it. Either they love it or they hate it. The internet is what the internet is. And I've met some cool people as a result of it. We've done a lot of cool racing as a result of it. We went to LS Fest and did some cool stuff with Holly, and my son, we camped out at the racetrack for 3 days, and he's jumping in the golf cart. We're tooling around, going to each event, and he's chasing me doing pit work. So yes, it was worth it. Not from a financial perspective. It was a lot, but the memories that I have as a result, actually getting it done, finishing it, and everything that happened afterwards kind of made up for that. So I guess the ROI on that would be, what I'm doing with it now. On paper, if I was an accountant, it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
That'd be a no, don't do that again.
Well, the old YOLO, right? You only live once.
Exactly.
And the memories, I love it. You nailed it, right? It's like, hey, I'm enjoying it now, and it would still be in the corner. And my son and the memories and the relationships, and ask me in 5 years, ask me in 10 years if it was worth it. Because right now, I'm going to be still struggling from a business perspective to make up the time because my team is behind.
But one hand too,
Yeah. What we did and what we are able to do, and having Carson and my wife and the relationship. And I went to SEMA. I got in the magazine. I'm on the cover of Street Truck magazine. So yeah, that ROI may take a lot longer. The slow play, the what is it? The slow dime versus the quick nickel.
I just actually came to this realization. So I tell my clients, because when you restore a car, especially like a pro touring type car where you're putting big power and chassis and everything, like you're not getting your money back. If you sell that car tomorrow, 50 cents on the dollar. It's just the facts. Like it's reality. So I try really hard to explain that. And most of my clients now have already built cars. They've been down the road. They get it. They've had cars they've bought and whatever. So what I try to emphasize is you have to stop thinking of it as an investment because it's not. If this was like it's not. You didn't find some 250 GTO in a barn that you're going to make $40 million on. That's not what this is. So build what you want to build, do it within your means where you're not thinking, oh, I got to sell this thing to make my, to pay my house off or whatever you're doing. And have the understanding that when it's done, you need to do stuff with it. So if you want to try autocross, you want to try, highway race or like half mile racing, you want to find something, you got to do something with it. And that the memories of doing that and the experiences of doing that, that's how you're paying for your car. Like that's what your extra money that you're losing, that's what that's building. So I guess I had to eat my own words, right? Or not really eat my own words. I had to live my own mantra because that's 1,000% what I've done.
Yeah, you really have. But at the same time, you have to, it's funny. It's almost like saying, hey, your investments, you made money. Now you have the money. And now this is a want, not a need. And by allowing me to build this for you, or you building it partially yourself or whatever, this is somewhere, somehow you wanted a C10, you wanted this truck, you wanted this K10 because you had one in high school or your best friend did, or, and now you're just kind of living out that part of your life.
Exactly.
I have a buddy of mine who's very, very, he's done very well and he's very smart business guy. And it's so funny because I'm always trying to get him to do more of this kind of stuff. And he's just so addicted to the business part. And I'm like, bro, you're going to blink and you're going to say, why didn't I do more of that and find that balance? And so, yeah, it's almost a little bit of a life coach where you're like, dude, you made the money, now spend some of it. And what do you want to spend it on?
I blame, but I shouldn't say I blame, the unfortunate reality of the industry, classic car industry, is the TV.
We just lost him. He locked up. He's jammed up, jelly tight. He's back.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. I lost you. You froze up. I
can't see you, but that's fine.
That's not a bad thing. Why? I wonder why. I don't know.
I don't want to say I blame.
I'm naked right now. You still can't see me. I'm literally.
I can't see nothing.
I'm literally butt ass.
Yeah, you can rub nipples, whatever you need to do.
Oh, dude, I'm butt ass naked right now. Come on.
So the unfortunate reality of our industry, classic cars and whatever, is like TV shows and stuff have made it about flipping. Oh yeah, we built this car, we did this, and we made 20 grand on it. We made 50 grand, and it's all TV. It's reality. It's bullshit. They see like Barrett Jackson, they go to these big auctions and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, they sold that for $500,000. If I buy this, I can do that, and then I'll make 100. And it's like, this isn't an investment. Like if this is your idea of how you're gonna like make your nut, it's a bad idea. And unfortunately, I deal with that a lot with trying to explain to people that, like, yeah, people make money. I'm not saying they don't, but the vast majority of enthusiasts and people within the industry, within this community of car, whether you're buying cars and want a personal car or whatever, like you might make a little bit here and there, but if you're building the car, you're the first guy, you ain't making money on it. You can start making money on the cars when you're the second or third guy down the road. But
I always say that, go to Barrett Jackson on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you'll see a lot of people. I feel like there's smoking deals. We used to call it Truck Tuesday, and I feel like there's smoking deals. And if people now start to factor in what it costs to build these, when you're thinking about shop hours of, 85 to 125 to 140 an hour, whatever it is, and there's no book that says this is what it costs. There's no dealership book. So a lot of these people, they do lose money on at Barrett, or if you will, and people are like, oh, Barrett Jackson's jacking up our prices. That's because somebody's watching on Friday or Saturday, and when you watch on Friday or Saturday and you're seeing that, but if you look at some of those cars and those trucks and you look at your Mondays and your Tuesdays and your Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
There's some deals out there.
Oh yeah. And so like generally if I get that conversation, if that's where the conversation goes, like if I'm, not that I'm interviewing a customer, but basically that's what we're doing.
Hey guys, are you thinking about swapping out your old motor for a more reliable LSLT based power plant? We've got great news for you. PSI Conversion is offering our listeners 10% off your order. Behind each PSI harness, you get over 10 years of experience in the business, online tech support, phone support, and harnesses made in the U.S. That's psiconversion.com. And don't forget, use code C10TALK and save 10% today.
Since the 1960s, US Mags has held the title for the longest-running custom wheel tradition. Experience the wheels that made history and set the trends for American truck culture for decades to come. From cast wheels to full custom 1- and 2-piece forged wheels, US Mags keeps you and your truck in mind with every new design and model. Our cast wheel series are designed specifically for Chevy trucks and are stocked and ready to ship, giving you the wheels you need when you need them with perfect fitment. Set your ride apart with our custom forged wheels, available in just about any finish and fitment desired. US Mags are guaranteed to distinguish your style and attitude from the rest.
Hey guys, I've got Andrew from Painless Wiring on. Andrew, what's the latest?
Just working on producing these GM truck harnesses. They're our best moving vehicle specific, and we're just, super excited to be able to service such a great community of truck guys.
Made in the USA. You guys are probably cranking them out nonstop. A ton of our audience is out there buying these trucks, building these trucks, and they know, hey, Painless Performance has got me taken care of.
Factory options, aftermarket stuff. If you have any questions, call our tech guys. They'll walk you through anything you need to know, and we'll make sure your truck gets wired up right the first time.
If you want to clean up your underdash, you want to clean up your chassis, it's that easy. Painlessperformance.com, painlessperformance.com. Thanks, Andrew.
And so like generally, if I get that conversation, if that's where the conversation goes, like if I'm, not that I'm interviewing a customer, but basically that's what we're doing. It's what do you want to do with it? Well, I just want to have something fun and I don't want to lose my money. And you start explaining what it's going to cost to build a car and they're like, oh, I want 800 horsepower and a chassis and this. And it's like, okay, well, you just spent $100,000. So what are you going to do for a car and a bodywork and interior?
And we haven't done the interior yet.
Right. Like, that you didn't even scratch the surface yet, and so what I generally would tell people then, and what my advice to anybody, if you're looking to buy a truck or a car or whatever, and you just want something to have fun in, like find a car that is a color you like or you can deal with, that has a nice interior, a decent motor, that's a runner driver that was maybe, passed through a couple hands, and drive that around. If you want to put a motor in it or something like that, you have some headspace there that, you don't lose a ton of money, but if all you're looking to do is just recreate, is just have something fun to bounce around in, like don't build one. Just buy something, and if you don't like that one, sell it, buy another one. Like kind of live in that realm and figure out what you really want and what you're really going to do with it. Because there's a lot of guys that'll build a car and they have this grand idea of what it's going to be like and how it's going to be, and you can spend $200,000 on a car, and like 69 Camaro, you can spend 200 grand on it, and at a certain point, when you slam the door and it still rattles and like the window doesn't seal super good, like it's still a 69 Camaro. So yeah, I think a lot of people kind of struggle, and it turns a lot of people off, and it really creates a lot of horror stories for guys and gals that are building stuff like that or having people build them for them, where it's not what they thought, and they would have been better off buying something that largely checked the boxes they were looking for and drive it and just have it for a bit and see what you like or you don't like, and maybe a pre-owned sports car is more for you, because it is tough sometimes when you drive some of the new stuff and try to compare it to dollar spent, and there is some downsides to these classic things,
Yeah, you're just talking yourself out of half your customers, but
I know
not really.
I say no more than I say yes.
Yeah,
I would rather, if they're not wholeheartedly understand what they're getting into, I would rather not build them a car and take their money and send them down a road where they're unhappy because they're not fun to deal with, and they're upset, and they don't want to spend the money and they don't want to do stuff. So then you're trying to get it done for not, you're not doing what you need to do to get it done. You're just trying to get it done so that they don't have to spend more money. And that's no fun for me. It's no fun for them. It's no fun for anybody. So like, I would rather educate you up front and say, look, man, this is going to be a tough road. We might hit some rabbit holes that we don't know how deep they are until we get to the bottom. So, you got to just know what you're up against when you start out. And I don't think enough people had that conversation. And that's why we have so many like horror stories and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you can go to Barrett, you can buy one for 65 and you can have fun and drive it. And then at that point, you still want to have your own individual one. You can hit up Cam and he'll take your money and you can build it exactly how you want it. But at the same time, just get out there and enjoy it. And you don't want to sit there for 3 years while you're like, well, now Cam's not done with it. So let's get back into the C10. So what would you say was your biggest struggle along the way? Like picking the wheels, the fab, the wing, the motor, the balance, where did you just say, dude, I am at odds here?
A lot of it was probably the body work. That was, because I was pretty well set on this is what I'm doing with the chassis. This is my math. This is that's numbers and welding like that wasn't that hard to manage. I struggled a lot with like, how do I make the motor, like I wanted the motor where it was, but how do I fit all my stuff into that area, and do it in a way that I can still sit in the seat and my passenger can still sit in the seat. And, I wanted air conditioning because it's hot here and I don't like to sweat. So, probably the biggest struggle of the whole thing was getting all of that stuff that I wanted. I did the big Holly screen and I did a race pack for the PDM, their smart wire deal. All of that was probably the hardest, was getting all that stuff into there and then building it in a way that was easy to digest, because there's a lot of stuff happening. And you see so many times where you'll sit in the car, or you see something done and it's just there's this like shit everywhere, and it kind of is overwhelming. And I tend to want things more simple looking, so I spent a lot of time and a lot of energy making things really, really complicated so I could make it look simple, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it. If you, I don't know if you've seen, we just talked about ZR10, so the carbon fiber. Have you seen his interior and how he has everything?
Beautiful in that truck.
Would you change anything on yours based upon how you have like your screen flat versus at an angle for the driver?
So, it's funny is I sat in the front seat of that truck for hours with the screen, putting the screen in front, putting it here, kind of moving it all over the place. And originally my plan was to have everything kind of angled towards me. But what I ended up struggling with was like, how do I end that without doing like a big waterfall console? And I didn't want this big console. Like it was like, I struggled to come up with how does this end in a way that I like, and it doesn't take up a ton of room and just add like needless weight, and then the other side, like I come from Sandcar, so I was like, God, I don't want to make a Sandcar dash. And that was like, whenever I started thinking about, well, if I do this, I can build this down, and I pull this into here, and it was like, that's a Sandcar dash. Yep, okay, I can't do that, and I don't know if anyone else would ever see that out of it, but that's what, like, I kept falling down that road where it was like, this looks like it come out of Sandcar. So that I would say that was the hardest, was design wise, was probably once I got over the fenders, was doing the dash and like the inside of the truck, and how do I make this not look ridiculous?
Well, the one thing that you did, I guess, by doing it the way you did, and please don't, I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just asking, is it does give it a little bit of that, 70s vibe. Like you said, it's like,
right.
Hey, an old 70s race Porsche isn't going to be a 2023. Right. So you are trying to find that balance.
Yeah. And that's where I struggle. Cause like initially I wanted to take sport, that Holman Moody car that I talked about earlier, it had Mustang sport seats, and their bolster, like their race seat, was literally upholstered like side pieces that bolted to the seat. So like it was the factory seat with big sheet metal things bolted to it that were padded. So that was like, oh, that'd be fun to kind of do if I did a sports seat and made it look like it was a race seat. Like really went down that road. And as I got more involved in what I was doing, it was like I just can't, So I really struggled with, I have this 70s exterior look, but how do I make the inside to where it's not like just a pain in the dick to be in? because the cars aren't very comfortable, So I went to a modern seat, and then I was like, well, I would really like the computer system to control all my fuel tanks and all the stuff that I got going on. I got a ton of stuff going on back there. So I got to do something with that. And it was a struggle. That was probably, yeah, it was tough to make that balance happen. And
Yeah,
I don't know. I
it
mean,
is all balance.
yeah, and the guys that are 70s race car guys are like, that doesn't look anything like it. The new guys are like, it looks like an old car. So I've just fell right in the middle of probably everybody's complaints, but I don't really give a shit.
Don't you think that that's what a huge question for me is, how many complaints have you gotten? Have you gotten more hate than you have gotten love? And is sometimes, what do they say? Bad press is still press. And I'm going to be very honest with you. When I came around the corner at SEMA, I was like, what is this? But then as I walked around, I tried to stay late, and I think I even have a video, and I'm like the only one around. And it isn't my style, but I'm not a race car truck guy, but
Right.
I do appreciate, and this is one of those trucks that I will say this, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on the pod with you, but it does grow on you. It
does.
absolutely grows on you.
Yeah.
And it's so out there that nobody's ever going to get it confused with any other truck. And just the lines, and then really some of the different things that you kind of incorporated into it. You did, there is a balance there. It's just a different balance than most people are going to see.
Yeah. So what was interesting about SEMA is I'm kind of an introvert. I don't like talking to people. I don't really like crowds. It's funny why I even go to SEMA in general. But what I had done was I would just kind of stand back in the booth and just watch people. And I did that with my hot rod. I've always kind of done that at car shows. Like I'm not that guy that wants to stand in front and boast about all the things I did. And what I did was I would just sit in the corner and kind of watch people and see what they pointed out, see what they said organically. Because, generally speaking, they'll say the worst things in the world on the internet, but to your face, they just kind of smile and go away, right? They don't say anything really mean. And not that I really cared one way or another, but I was interested to kind of know what people would point out or not point out, or how somebody else would perceive what I kind of envisioned and what I created. And what I had found was like your diehard air ride C10 guys, they were not for it. There was the people that didn't really, the normies that thought it was cool, but it was like, oh, it must have had rusty bedsides, so they just cut them off. And it was like, yeah, that's why. Yeah, I spent an extra 3 weeks because I didn't want to repair rust. Like, are you?
Oh man, how did that guy get into SEMA? Holy
Exactly.
shit.
So, there was weird comments like that. And like guys were trying to figure out why the beds look different. And, I had one guy he was talking to his buddy, and I wasn't saying nothing to nobody. I was just standing there, and he's telling him, he's like, oh, he must have narrowed the cab. That's what he did. The cab's narrower. That's why the fenders stick out. And I was like, damn.
You should have recorded all that.
Like, I'm good.
you should have recorded all that and videoed it and then blocked out their face. You would have had so much content. Oh my God.
But what I found, the people that really loved it, oddly enough, and I shouldn't say oddly enough, it's very common over there, but like the Germans, the owner of KW loved it. And there was some German like YouTube guys that came by and they loved it. And a lot of guys that were like German race car enthusiasts, I would call them. They had like BMWs and Porsches and stuff like that. Like the guys that like the Group 5 era of racing, and or at least had some knowledge of it, they got it initially. Like immediately, it was like, wow, this looks like a Group 5. And I'm like, yeah, that was the idea. So like I kind of made one little niche. They were super excited about it. And then generally speaking, people thought it was cool and crazy and, kind of your general, normie kind of responses. And there was some C10 guys I talked to that thought it was dumb. That's fine. Like I didn't build it for everyone else's approval. A lot of the ultimate streetcar guys, Optima streetcar. They came in because they had kind of seen it being built and seen what I was doing and knew my intention was to race in their events and kind of do those things. So they came in and talked to me for a while, and they liked the engineering side of it. It was a hit or miss on, well, I like it. It's wild and crazy. I can't say I'd want it on my truck, but it is cool to look at. That was probably the most common response was it's cool. It's done really nice. would I do this to mine? Maybe not, but like I can appreciate what you did, and I see what you're trying to do here. You know what I mean? So it was, generally speaking, it was well received, at least the people I talked to, and people were respectful. And even on the internet, like there's the most comments it's ever gotten and the most complaint, if there was a keyboard warrior complaint to make, would be I forgot who it was. One of the Instagram people called it a mid-engine. And like it technically is. And the guy, I went to a Cars and Coffee, it was where he filmed it. And he must have been talking to my dad. My dad had come with, and my dad was, he's the talk to everybody guy. And so he's telling him, he's like, oh yeah, it's technically mid-engine. He's like doing this whole thing. So that's what started this whole thing. And it's not even like a thing that it wasn't on the bullet points of this is my advertisement for the truck. It's a mid-engine. And it's the one thing that like everyone's latched onto, and like, oh, that's not a mid-engine. He doesn't know what a mid-engine. And it's like this whole dissertations about mid-engines. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. People just lose their shit.
That's the internet on it is the mid-engine comment. And then they say, that's not a pickup truck. You can't haul anything in it. You can't haul lumber in it. Try hooking up a trailer to that. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, I can't solve that guy,
Yeah. At that point, well, let's we know that it's different. We know that it definitely stands out. How does it race? How does it perform? Are you happy with the way that you built it? And when you get behind it and you're just putting the pedal down, are you like, this son of a bitch handles great? Or, hey, I got some tweaking to do?
So initially, I had some issues with like some snap oversteer, like mid corner. And what was ended up happening was that it was pulling through bushings and stuff. So I switched everything to Delrin, like my upper and lower control arms. And what ended up was happening was the tire stuck. And as the truck's trying to, peel the tire off the ground, it ends up pulling the upper control arm out. Right. So it's pulling through all the bushings. So I switched everything to Delrin, and that solved that. And then, I have the coilovers are triple adjustables, so that it's just like I got adjustments everywhere for days. So I struggled with some of the setup stuff and kind of like, where do I even start on this thing? So I talked to Chris again at KW, and he's like, look, this is where the math works out. Start here. You're going to want to try this, go here. And he kind of like coached me and where to start chasing this thing, because it's like, it could be, is it alignment? Is it this? Does it need more toe out? Does it need toe in? Does it want more camber, less camber? Like there's so many variables in kind of starting from a clean piece of paper like I did, that I can't like Google, C10 alignment specs for autocross like that. It's just, that doesn't apply. But largely the thing out of the box, I was thrilled with it. And we just did a SCCA event 2 weeks ago, and I had an absolute blast. You jump in the thing, fire it up, like it doesn't hiccup, it doesn't burp, it doesn't do anything dumb. Like it's as dead reliable as I could ever hope it to be. My wife did her first, autocross run ever in it, and she loved it. She's looking forward to the next thing. So it's like, it checked every box I ever could ask it to check. That the only thing I maybe want to change, or kind of what I've been considering changing, is either more horsepower or doing something different for gear ratio as far as transaxle is concerned, or whether I build the 60/60 or maybe go a little bit wilder and spend some money and do like a sequential or something. Like I'm not sure which road to take, because there's some instances where I either need more gear or I need more horsepower. And
what's your horsepower now?
Balancing right now.
What's your horsepower right now?
It's like a cam, bolt-on LS3, so it's a 550-ish. Somewhere in there, based on like its pound per hour and stuff, it works out to about 550 horsepower.
Only reason I
just
remember Finch saying anything over 600 is too much. So I just remember talking to him.
Like I wish if there were times like 100 horsepower, I'd be thrilled. If I could do like an NA LS7 that made 650 horsepower at the crank, I think that's probably the bee's knees. Or maybe do a different different transaxle that I can play with the gear ratios, and maybe get the gear ratio to live more in the engine's power curve and try to match them a little closer. because the LS3's got a pretty big cam and stuff in it. So I moved that power pretty high up, and set the stock Corvette rear end is a 340 gear. So it needs, like, if I'm trying to pull a second gear out of a corner, if it's not already pretty high up in the RPM range, I shouldn't say pretty high up. If it's not over 3,000 RPM, it's kind of a mutt trying to get it through there. And I've hacked a bunch of timing. Like, I've done everything I can do to try to wake it up down there and get me some. But I need to either get more gear ratio, go to like a 373.
Because you're kind of coming out of your power band and you're not getting that
well,
bite
I'm
right
below the curve. So there's a point in time where it's like I damn near want to put my foot out and start kicking the ground, because it's not knocking the tire off, and my foot's flat to the floor. So like I could hold more power if I had it, but I just don't have it. So I either need more power, or I need a gear ratio that allows it to be more efficient at putting the power to the ground, or whatever you want to.
Yeah. So a little funny story. So you and I have been kind of chatting this up, when we're getting this interview and when are we going to do this? And we kind of, you're busy, I'm busy. We make it happen. So 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting at a bar.
Okay.
Tempe, Arizona, for the audience. That's right next to ASU.
Yeah.
And this guy pulls in to the bar, and I had a Horizon Miser, a Plymouth Horizon.
Okay.
My first car was an 81. It was either 80, 81 Plymouth Horizon. The audience has kind of heard me talk about it. Well, that guy rolls into the bar, and I kind of am sitting by a window. I see the dude. Then he walks into this pub, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, love your car." And so we start talking. I must have had a C10 hat or shirt on, but he told me, he goes, "I just kicked the C10's ass with a Horizon Miser." So your buddy,
Nice.
Who's your buddy? Who's got the Horizon?
That's Austin.
I can't remember his name. He told me his social media. Kind of a bigger, tall guy, 6'2", got some long hair. It's got tan.
Long hair and a beard.
Yep. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm supposed to interview Cameron. We're just waiting. And I was like, I can't wait. I can't wait to give him shit.
I was one of my best friends was his cousin.
Yeah, he said he knew you, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to give Cameron shit about." So obviously this SCCA event that you were just at, he was at. He comes rolling in with this little Horizon, and I'm like, dude, that is legendary because those cars are absolute garbage. I mean, this is the worst of the worst for you think about the K cars of Chrysler. Yeah. My parents paid like $5,000 for this car, 4-door. He found a mint. A little jewel.
It is a really cool little car.
It is. And I couldn't wait to kind of get out there and check it out. But yeah, he said you guys were buddies and that you were racing together. And obviously I'm like, well, you're doing it right because you came to the pub right after you got done racing. But yeah, he said give you some shit.
We so the track this time was like all slaloms, and I hate slaloms. And like again, like my autocross experience, I've done like 5 events. That encompasses my entire autocross experience. And it's a much different driving style than like driving off-road. Like racing off-road through the desert is a dramatically different driving style than running through cones. And this particular track layout was all slaloms. And like slaloms are the death of me. And I made the freaking wide body. So like visually, when you see the cone to like time back in, it inevitably that you have an extra 3 inches hanging out the side of the truck because I made these damn wide bodies, and so I struggle with the slalom stuff, and I finally got a time together towards the end of the day, and it was I'm having fun.
Well, you're only going to get better.
I probably
right?
need a driver mod.
yeah. You're only going to get better. Maybe you need some more screen time, and when you and Carson are tablet time to get dialed in on the simulator. But I think you're only going to get better because you're going to get better. The truck's going to get better.
Right.
You know what's funny to take you out. I know you kind of got to get going, but it's funny, and I wonder if you've ever thought about this. And again, I just throw this out there. I'm not trying to be critical, but because you came from the dunes, you came from the cars, you came from motorcycling. When I look at this truck, especially because the way it is bobbed, you've got a picture, kind of a sunset picture in street trucks where it's cornered and you can really see the rear end. I look at that and I'm like, dude, if Hickey was alive today, if you could build that truck as a pre-runner C10, I mean,
Oh yeah.
oh my God, I look at that thing and
Yeah.
it's funny because the way you have it built, it looks like a pre-runner type, something that would a
Yeah, I
dirt
guess their beds are
race.
all bobbed up like that too.
Oh,
Never even
totally.
really considered it.
Yeah. I
But
want to do a rendering of that thing sitting on like some 35s, independent,
yeah, all
full
squatted down
independent.
like a Pro 4
Oh,
or something.
totally. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like a Pro 4 that's just leaping over. And then you've got you've got the cutting edge C10 that's just, or K10, I guess, at that point. But well, it
Right.
probably still would be a C10 because a lot of times they're not even running all
Yeah, that's
four.
fair.
But
Yeah, that
well,
started quite the internet debacle there.
oh, I know. They got to have something fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take you out. So we talked a little bit about your biggest challenge. What's next? We got to get you some more seat time. Obviously, you're probably going to take it to Dino's and show it off there. Will you have a booth
Yeah,
there?
so I'll take it to Dino's, and we got Good Guys is what's that,
right
November
after.
17th?
Yep, right after.
So we'll do that, and that's the Duel in the Desert. So I'll have to try to race into that on Friday. I don't know if I'll be able to pull that off, but I'll be there. I'll take the truck out there and run it however much I can. And then there's a couple of the SCCA events again. I'll do as many of those as I can, and I would really like to do some Optima, Ultimate Streetcar stuff next season.
So how does that work? Because you were at SEMA last year, can you qualify and go, or you had to
So
run
the
and
events
qualify?
are open, like a normal event throughout the season or throughout the year, right? They have events all year, and they go to different racetracks and stuff like that. So you just sign up and you race, and if you win the event, then they invite you to SEMA to race at SEMA. And obviously I'd love to win, but there's a lot of really prepped vehicles and a lot of really great drivers that do that circuit. So I don't foresee that happening. Obviously, I'll do my best, but I mostly want to just try to expand the racing side of the truck, and again, try to go back to the ROI of it all. Try to create some memories and do some events and do some things that I've always wanted to do and never had. I never could do it with whatever vehicles I had or didn't have the opportunity, and I kind of got the opportunity now. So I want to try to create as many memories and do as much stuff with it as I can and meet new people and just try to live some life while I'm standing.
Good luck with that, because that goes back to that balance where you're like, well, I've got Carson and Disneyland and Mama and
and Carson started racing go-karts, so we're doing that a lot now. So I don't know. I'm trying to balance, the race truck stuff and Carson's go-karting and family life and school and, all this stuff. And thank God I have a wife that's in love with all of it, and she's gung for all of it. And, and Carson's, he's into all of it too. So, we have kind of a really fun little program, if you will, within our family. And it certainly makes that a lot easier. But to your point, like I can't do the whole Optima series. Like I still have to get work done here. So
someday
I'll probably try to shoot for one in California and do the weekend and see how I like the event and go from there. If it's something I'm really into and I like it, and then obviously I'll try to keep going and do as much as I can. Like I'll do LS Fest again. That's fun, and that's a pretty easy event to get to from here. And it's fun for the family and it's easy.
And the more you get out, the more you race, the more you're going to meet those guys, so
exactly.
You're going to meet.
And again, like, I just want to have fun with the damn thing. I'm not so concerned with trying to win events and obviously I want to do good. I want to improve myself, but like, I'm not the guy that's, wants to talk shit and bet 10 grand on a race. Like that's not me. Like the world, it's not that important, like Pepsi's not calling me tomorrow to offer me a sponsorship because I won at fucking SCCA Autocross on Thursday.
I don't know, you put those stripes on, they might, because they are kind of Pepsi color.
No, I'll probably get a cease and desist.
Yeah, you
don't
might
call me, but it'll be for a different reason.
I was thinking you should match your seat stripes. It might kind of bring it all together.
The martini stripes. Those seats are the Sparco Martini editions.
Yeah, so that'll look perfect. All right, well, for the audience, you could see this truck in person. If you don't know the truck, look him up. Cutting Edge Hot Rods on Instagram. I assume, is there a Facebook as well?
No.
Okay, so he's got IG. So Cutting Edge Hot Rods. He's out of Phoenix. It will be at the Get Down look for him at an LS Fest or a Good Guys near you. And great dudes doing great shit, having a great time. And we're lucky that we have that in our community.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, Cameron. Again, have a great weekend. Have fun with Carson out there tearing it up. Tell Austin the Horizon he's my hero because he's still rocking that thing. And
I'm gonna have to give him some shit for talking shit about me now.
Yeah, I did more of the shit talking. He was just drinking a beer, and I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna tell him said you were kicking his ass," because we know that a Horizon Miser, whatever it has, I don't care what motor, whatever, it's not gonna kick anybody's ass at all. He's out there just having. He's literally. He was having a blast. He should name that thing "Hold My Beer." That's what he should name that thing because, that thing is. My father-in-law's calling me. Speaking of father-in-laws, all right, dude, I'm gonna take you out again. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man, it was great.
Good stuff, right? Rad dude building rad shit. Like I said, we're lucky. We have so many great dudes in our scene and our community. Again, I'll be back for some SEMA content in a few weeks, and then don't forget about the Get Down, our pre-live next week, October 24th, Tuesday. Again, I'm throwing that out there probably about 6 p.m. AZ time. Dino, the Big Cat, will be live from the Cardinal Stadium. Q&A. We'll see how that goes. If you have any questions or pre-questions, let me know. You can always shoot them over to me, Ronnie, at Truck Talk Media, and then, we'll bring those up right away. But I think Terry will be there, and she'll be reading them off, and then we'll answer them live from the Q&A next week, Tuesday, October 24th. Thanks, guys. Peace.